Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ben Thompson with Treble Health. So excited to be here for this special live Q&A. For those who are here live, I'd love to see in the chat where you're coming from. And let's jump right into question number one. First question is to address the connection between hearing loss and tinnitus. Many of you, I imagine, have gone to a local doctor and maybe seen an audiologist for a hearing test. Often those appointments measure the hearing in the cells, and deep in the inner ear, there are these specific cells that are designed to pass sound through the hearing organ up to the auditory brain. And often those cells can be damaged over time and experience some degree of hearing loss. So is tinnitus caused by hearing loss? Often there is some relationship, or it's partially caused by hearing loss, but not always. Let me dive a little deeper right now. So the first story I want to share is someone who has a mild high-pitched hearing loss who has seen me for an appointment. It's a very common story. Someone who developed tinnitus over the past few weeks and it's starting to really bother them. They're having a hard time falling asleep, and they're noticing that it's difficult to focus or concentrate during the day. Over time, that tinnitus doesn't go away. In fact, it gets more noticeable, more persistent, and the more the patient thinks about it, the more difficult it tends to get. Now, over time, tinnitus can get better on its own, but often we need to intervene or be proactive and do something to assist with it. So just to reinforce what I'm speaking about here, the first question we're going to address in today's live Q&A is a question that was submitted early, and the question asks, if you have hearing loss, does that mean it's the cause of your tinnitus? In my experience, about 3/4 of my patients who I've seen and patients who work with us at Treble Health have some degree of hearing loss. And when we measure the hearing, we find a high-pitched hearing loss. Generally, that is a potential root cause of tinnitus, okay? So what's often missed, however, is that there are other factors, other subtypes, other root causes of tinnitus that can be happening at the same time. And those are referred to as the central subtype or the somatic or somatosensory subtype of tinnitus. So all this to say, just because there is one main cause of tinnitus does not mean other causes of tinnitus cannot happen at the same time. All right, let's jump to question number two. Question number two is, how do you find the root cause of tinnitus? We know through research that about 80% of tinnitus cases fall into those three subtypes: cochlear, meaning hearing loss related, somatic or somatosensory related, and finally central or stress induced. So just a quick breakdown of what those mean. Cochlear refers to the cochlea, the inner ear organ, and that is often related to a progressive hearing loss. All right. Just know that when you treat tinnitus, your tinnitus can get better, but the hearing doesn't have to change because everyone's hearing is slowly, progressively declining over time, including mine, including everyone. But tinnitus can get better if you're going through a challenging period of tinnitus. It's an important piece to know. All right. The second subtype there, the somatic or somatosensory tinnitus, often the least understood by patients and medical professionals. This relates to conditions like TMJ in the jaw or upper neck conditions like cervical spine issues, even posture issues, sometimes dental infections in the teeth. Those types of things could potentially be causing tinnitus. So it's part of a workup where, an audiologist on our team, for example, when we see patients, we make sure to go through all of these details so that we know exactly which subtype to identify for our patients and treat the case accordingly. Finally, we have that central subtype, which refers to stress-induced tinnitus most often. This is when the mechanism in the brain which suppresses neutral body sensations is out of balance, and suddenly this tinnitus signal is becoming much more intense. So what we need to do is not necessarily work on the tinnitus itself, but settle the central nervous system, and then the system gets back in balance, and the tinnitus is subdued, is essentially suppressed at the level of the limbic system, the psychological center of our brain that controls anxiety, fear, and is related to the fight or flight response. So we can train ourselves over time that tinnitus is not a threat. It's not going to impact us or injure us by any means. All right, we have a first question here from Rob. Rob on YouTube. Rob, great to see you. If you're here live on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, I want to see you in the chat. I want to see your response. I'm taking your live questions. Rob, great to see you. Rob asks, can you start to feel dizzy with tinnitus? There can be conditions that have tinnitus and dizziness linked together, and some causes of tinnitus could be also Meniere's, which is a type of disorder, and that has connections between the inner ear, the vestibular system, and the inner ear, the cochlea, the hearing organ. So, Rob, there's a slight chance that we would want to investigate that to see if that's potentially the underlying cause of dizziness and tinnitus. That's pretty rare, however, and not very common. So what we would do is we would try to understand, does your dizziness happen at the same time that you experience tinnitus? From what you shared, you start to feel dizzy with tinnitus. That could be related to the fatigue of the constant stress on the nervous system of tinnitus. That could be related to just feeling that tired and overwhelmed sensation, which sometimes can accompany headaches. But if you're really getting vertigo or spinning sensation, that's something we would want to look into a little more specifically. All right, but great question, and thank you for asking. All right, next up we have a question. Why do different people hear different tinnitus sounds? I love this question. So I myself hear a high-pitched ringing sound. That's the most common type of tinnitus. Other individuals can report hissing, buzzing, roaring, whooshing, electrical noise. Most commonly, people are reporting hissing or ringing, and that's if that's heard equally in both ears or in both ears, that is often related to a cochlear tinnitus or potentially a central subtype or stress-induced type of tinnitus. All right. So other sounds of tinnitus, for example, roaring or hissing, other types of sounds of tinnitus like clicking or whooshing, those could be related to conditions of the eustachian, problems of the eustachian tube, which is a different part of the hearing system. Those could also be related to somatic or somatosensory tinnitus. And then there's also the pulsatile tinnitus, where it's synchronized with your heartbeat. Okay, next question is from Marco. Marco, and Rob, I see your comment there. Rob says, no, it's just slight dizziness sometimes, and they ruled out Meniere's. So, Rob, glad to hear that, and thank you so much. Thanks for asking your question. All right, I got questions coming up from Marco, followed by Louis. Excellent. Marco, great to see you. All right, Marco asks, are there any ties between COVID and the onset of tinnitus? Marco, there are. There's been research published that shows a small but significant percentage of people who develop the COVID infection do have associated symptoms with their ears. That includes hearing loss, that includes tinnitus, that also can include some dizziness or vertigo. That research study came out early into the pandemic and it did provide some validity to the concerns that were being raised by the tinnitus community that the COVID infection was causing ear symptoms. And I personally, I believe I've had COVID um, only once, and when I had it, my tinnitus went from, say, a 1 out of 10, very very low level, up to a 3 out of 10, and I was experiencing significant, in symptoms of the infection, and I was also experiencing a louder ringing in my ears. So what that shows me is that there's a lot of stress on the central nervous system during that period, right? The body is undergoing a lot of stress, and tinnitus can be perceived as much louder. Additionally, there's some theory that there's potentially some changes in the ear that can happen during COVID infection. For some people, the tinnitus, goes away after the infection or goes back to normal, but for others, it can persist. Just know that the best treatments available for tinnitus, like sound therapy treatment, like working with a professional focused on tinnitus retraining therapy, these kinds of approaches, they will work if the tinnitus was caused by the COVID infection. Thanks, Marco. All right, we got great questions coming up. Brian, Jerry, Gerardo, M, NK, glad you guys are here. If you guys are here live in the chat, I'd love to see where you're coming from. So if you're watching live, write comment where you are in the world. I'm in California. All right, let's jump into Lois's question. Lois asks, what about an underlying viral or bacterial infection as the root cause? Do you recommend blood work to uncover a root cause? I'm referring to infections like Lyme disease. Occasionally, bacteria or viral infections can impact the inner ear. We know that there is something referred to as sudden hearing loss, where seemingly out of nowhere, someone can develop a spontaneous hearing loss, often in one ear. And that can lead to not only changes to hearing, but also tinnitus. So it is documented that these kinds of infections can impact the inner ear and certainly lead to changes into the auditory space. Lyme disease, I haven't heard so much of as in relationship to hearing loss and tinnitus, but blood work, if it can identify an infection, and you can treat the infection in a pretty rapid timeline, I could see some benefit to that. That's a great conversation to have with your ENT, ear, nose, and throat physician, Lois. And in terms of just to wrap up my answer there are treatments if someone is suspecting that tinnitus was caused by a viral or a bacterial infection. There are some treatments that can be used by your ENT doctor in the short term. So I'd consider those, and of course, make sure they're recommended by your doctor. All right, Brian says, I'm 21 now and I've had tinnitus since I was 17. I got a hearing test done last month for the first time and I scored perfect on hearing. My question is, what should I look for now as a root cause? Brian, I would look for the central subtype of tinnitus, focusing on settling down the central nervous system, that mechanism where the ability of your subconscious brain to suppress neutral or benign sensations. Think about part of your brain, it suppresses your perception of your heartbeat. It suppresses your perception of your breathing. Those are both sounds, those are both vibrations that happen every single day, every single moment. So if your brain can reduce those perceptions, even though they're still there, then your brain can do that to some degree to your tinnitus. So Brian, I would look there. I would look at guided breathing. I would look at settling the central nervous system. I would look at a total revamp of your sleep, of your health, of your diet and nutrition. Get your body and brain in the best order that it can and see how much that can improve your tinnitus. If it's not a hearing loss related thing, then it's most often the central subtype, but it also could be a somatic or somatosensory subtype. So in that case, I would, speak to an audiologist. For example, our team has telehealth sessions that are available for consultation. So can certainly help you out with that at Treble Health. But essentially, we would rule out somatic or somatosensory based tinnitus. So that refers to the jaw, TMJ issues, We may send you to a dentist to get an evaluation for that, and they can potentially, identify something that's tight in your jaw. Well, that actually could be related to your tinnitus. So that'll be my next step after the hearing test. Great question. Jerry, thanks for the love. I appreciate it. All right, Gerardo. I see Gerardo has a guitar in his YouTube profile icon, so that's awesome. Gerardo, hope you're still playing. Hope your ears are doing well, or at least relatively well. I've worked with many musician patients. I play acoustic guitar and sing. I've worked with patients who play, amplified live electric guitar sounds, drummers, etc. Here's the thing: when so much of your hobby or your work is wrapped around music and loud noise, it quickly becomes much more than just an auditory hearing phenomenon. There's a lot of, they're often not necessarily in your case, but what I see is there's a lot of anxiety wrapped up in, can I play again? Am I going to damage my ears? Does this mean I'm not able to play music the same way I've grown accustomed to? All of these questions are valid. However, for most people, we're safe here. All right. So you're not going to put your ears in danger when you use earplugs, when you use hearing protection that's appropriate for you. You're not putting yourself in greater danger. You should be okay. All right. And if your tinnitus gets a little louder after you play, that's okay as well. But the main thing to understand is, how much risk do you have of being around loud noise? What I find is that people often overestimate the risk out of fear, out of concern that they might do irreversible damage. But that's not the case. So use hearing protection, use earplugs, and work with a professional if you have further questions, because we're here to help. All right, great to see you guys. I see Kamal from Vermont, MJ from Colorado. We have Kron from NYC. We have Michael from Oklahoma. Amazing. All right, let's keep going. So next question here is from NK. NK asks, I feel anxiety when my neck muscles and my shoulder muscle, I feel anxiety when my neck muscles and shoulder muscles bring pain at the same time as tinnitus. Can tinnitus cause muscle pain? Can it cause a headache? Tinnitus by itself cannot cause muscle pain necessarily, but muscle pain can cause tinnitus if it's in a certain area, like behind the ear or at the level of the jaw. Muscle pain by itself, tinnitus by itself, it's rare for it to cause a headache, but understanding that the tinnitus is a nuisance, it's an annoying sound. It's persistent. It makes it hard to relax. Those types of experiences can create a lot of stress, and stress can cause headaches. Stress can also cause muscle pain. So I would say most likely what's happening here, NK, is that the tinnitus is causing stress on your body, stress on your mind, and that is creating some tightness in the muscles that could be creating some headaches as well. We got Lois from Maryland, Brian from Arizona in the house. Great to see you guys. I'll just take a quick moment to share some of my fancy captions here. So, my name is Dr. Ben Thompson. I'm the founder of Treble Health. I'm an audiologist specializing in tinnitus, here to answer your questions, here to help out however I can. We have a team of doctors who specialize in tinnitus, who work via telehealth. And you can find out more about our program at treblehealth.com. The link is right there on the screen. And if you have further questions, schedule a consult to understand your history a little more specifically and offer some personalized advice. I want to see your Q&A, your questions. I want to see your questions in the chat. I'm here to answer them, guys. We got 30 more minutes. Come on, let's go. All right, very good. So next up, we have Michael Schwartz. Michael, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Michael, who's commenting here on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I want to see all your YouTube cats and dogs. I want to see you guys. I want to see where you're at, where you're coming from. Michael asks, I have single-sided deafness, and the tinnitus is louder on my deaf side. It's been as loud as someone drilling into my head since I was 17. And Michael's 64 now. So Michael, it's obviously been some tough years there in terms of your hearing and your ears. Man, you've really hung in there. So I just want to empathize, and of course when we hear that how loud your tinnitus is and how persistent it is, just want to say that's not easy, and I'm really glad you're hanging in there and you're showing up here. So my thoughts are a few things you can try. Number one would be a cross hearing aid that gives you hearing on your bad ear by having little hearing aids on each ear, and it picks up sound coming from your bad ear and it sends it over to your good ear so you can hear sound coming from your bad ear. That's useful if you're in a group conversation where it might be really hard to hear people on your bad ear side, but with this cross hearing aid system, you can do so pretty well. So that's more of a consideration for hearing. I wouldn't expect that to provide relief from your tinnitus. However, that's something that you might not be aware of. The other piece of this would be sound therapy, Michael. So what you might not know, what's not that well understood by most patients who work with us, is that the right and the left ear, they go through the hearing nerve. And it's not just a straight shot to each side of the brain. There's actually a lot of crisscrossing. It looks like almost a DNA strand where the hearing nerves go through the auditory system. So what that means for you is that even though your deaf ear, your ear with the hearing loss, can't benefit from sound coming through your ear to reduce the perception of the tinnitus, if you play it from the good ear, then that nerve crisscrosses and it does impact some of that bad ear in the auditory brain regions. So what that means is that we have patients who we work with for the exact same situation, and we have them play a low-level sound therapy on their good ear, and that comes up through the auditory system, and it provides some relief, and it essentially creates some, it reduces the perception of the tinnitus so that your lived experience of it isn't as intense. And that's worthwhile exploring. So hopefully that helps. You can use basic sound therapy. You can also use professional sound therapy for this, and that will be going through your good ear. So hopefully that helps, and thank you so much. All right, we have David C. coming to us live on Facebook. Great to see you, my friend. David asks, does earwax cause tinnitus? It certainly can. David, essentially, think of the pipes in your kitchen. All right. So the pipes in your kitchen, if they're clogged, then the water doesn't go through. Right? It's clogged. Your ear canal is similar, where if the ear canal, which is essentially a tube, if that's plugged with earwax, then sound can't go through, or less sound can go through is a better way to say it. So yes, if earwax is completely blocking your ear canal, then it will create a hearing loss, and it potentially will create some tinnitus. Now, many people who have experienced earwax with tinnitus just get better when the earwax is removed. But some people notice that their tinnitus doesn't get better right away, and that's okay. We see that a lot. So just know that as you're managing this, it's normal for tinnitus, which is neurological, to not go away immediately once the earwax is removed. If you have any follow-up questions, David, let me know, my man. All right, so Kron, great to see you. Watching from New York City. I lived in New York City for a year, and now I'm living back in California. I had a great time. So glad you're coming to us from New York. All right, so Kron asks, to what extent do you recommend wearing hearing protection in everyday noisy environments like the subway to mitigate tinnitus worsening and or promote recovery? Well, New York is, in my experience, it's the loudest city that I've ever lived, and it is quite a loud city. However, unless you're working on the subway, the noise levels are definitely safe in terms of safe listening levels and potentially damaging your hearing. If you notice that your tinnitus can get louder, it can spike around loud noises, then you might want to wear earplugs when you're riding the subway. That's more just to manage your spike. However, it doesn't. What I think someone might believe that because they have tinnitus, the cells in their hearing organ are somehow more sensitive, but that's not the case. What we know, however, is that if you have a tinnitus, it's neurological, meaning it's the auditory nerve and the auditory brain, and an increase in noise, loud noise, it can spike that system, so you'll experience louder tinnitus potentially, not always, but potentially. So that's something we do want to, understand the risk profile there, so that, of course, your tinnitus doesn't spike, and then also so that you can just enjoy noise without being worried about it. So yes, you can go to concerts, you can be around noise, but try to protect it whenever you have the opportunity to do so. And if you want to experiment, you can do so. Ride the subway without hearing protection. You're not putting yourself at risk of damaging your hearing permanently because of that. Again, unless you spend a lot of time around those loud noises, you're most likely fine. Okay, so M says Colorado. Love Colorado. My dad went to University of Colorado Boulder. I've never been. I have no idea why. I would love to go. M explains that M says, mine started after a tooth was pulled, and now it kind of comes and goes. It's been hard to accept. I hear you, and I empathize with that. It's not an easy thing to accept. What's interesting here is that you're showing that your tinnitus was likely related to a dental procedure or a tooth being pulled, and I've heard that before, and I've worked with patients who have a similar history. Let's get that checked out, making sure that you've been treated whenever possible for any sort of bacterial infection or nerve impact in the dental area. So definitely do your appropriate dental work up there, and regardless of what the cause of your tinnitus is, there are amazing tools that can help. Our team at Treble Health works with patients all the time like you who have different circumstances. They develop tinnitus and they're looking for either ways to reduce it or manage it, or just try to get their life back as much as they can. And just remember that there is hope. Okay, hang in there, and thank you for sharing your story with us. All right, we got some great new comments here. Michael adds to his story. Michael says he blames his hearing on earth, wind, and fire. Went to a concert and his ears hurt for 3 days. I don't remember having tinnitus before that. Michael, I'm curious what's the cause of that hearing loss also, because I see there you say that you had an acoustic neuroma, which caused your right audio nerve to die. Essentially, that's a growth on the hearing nerve. So totally understand there. Thank you for explaining that, and sorry to hear that. All right, let's answer some more questions, shall we? I'll try to go rapid fire so I can answer as many as possible. All right, next question here is from Vincent. Vincent asks, if I work out or exercise that gives pressure to the neck or shoulders, and my right ear feels pressure, what should I do about it? So, Vincent, it's totally okay to exercise and work out, even if it temporarily increases your tinnitus. My recommendation would be follow a tinnitus treatment plan, have some structure in order with your sound therapy, with your exercises, with your overall approach in the perception of this tinnitus over time, and that you might experience some temporary increase of the tinnitus when you work out, putting some pressure on your neck or shoulder. I would also like you to get evaluated for any abnormal conditions of your upper neck. So cervical spine, posture, things like this. It can be an undiagnosed somatosensory tinnitus. So definitely check that out. All right. Kamal, great to see you. Kamal says he's from Vermont. My brother went to the University of Vermont. I love Vermont. I'm a big Vermont fan. Also love the outdoors. Colorado, Vermont. You guys are amazing. Okay. Kamal asks, is tinnitus always ringing in the ears? Because sometimes I hear it's in my head, not necessarily my ears. Yes, that is true, and that happens to a lot of individuals. So I'm not worried with anything there. Tinnitus can often be perceived as coming from the center of the head or the back of the head, even. So it doesn't need to be. You don't need to perceive it coming from your ears. Yeah, Kamal, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that. That's pretty common to hear tinnitus in the head, not necessarily the ears. All right, next up we have Jose from Mexico. Jose, great to see you here. Thank you so much. I love your country. I've spent a few months traveling in Mexico, and I also spent some time in Oaxaca. So, me encanta Mexico. Jose says, I'm on a spike from the loud door slamming, and the pain has lasted about 5 days. Could my hair cells be suffering because of that door slamming? Jose, first I want to say I'm sorry to hear that, and that sounds like it's been rough. And hang in there. Just do what you can. Just focus on the simple things here. Using sound therapy, trying to get sleep. Trying to not make this any worse than it is by spending time on the internet searching tinnitus, or stay up late online related to tinnitus. Just try to focus on the basics, and I hope this will get better for you. It's rare that a door slamming would cause permanent hearing loss. Even if it did change the cells in your hearing structure, your tinnitus can still get better. Okay? So this applies to the other gentleman earlier who had a significant hearing loss as well. When the hearing loss is measured, and let's say a hearing loss is permanent, tinnitus is neurological. It's related to the nerve and the auditory brain. That means it can change for the better. It can reduce. So even if the door slamming permanently damaged your hearing, your tinnitus is not permanent. Your tinnitus can get better. So I recommend that you do get a hearing test to measure what happened in your ear, have a doctor look in your ear, and focus on the tinnitus therapies that work. And I expect you to get better quickly. All right, next up we have Mark. Mark from YouTube. Mark's in the UK. Amazing. Mark asks, I'm getting my ears syringed and waiting a long time to see the ENT doctor in the National Health System in the UK. Mark was a DJ, and his tinnitus is max volume. So, Mark, my recommendation would be similar here. We want to set our brain up, set our body up for success with tinnitus. So that means good sleep habits. That means exercise, eating well. That means using sound therapy. And then we want to start some tinnitus therapies. That means using sound therapy systematically for many waking hours of the day at a level that's lower than your tinnitus. That means considering things like guided breathing and cognitive behavioral strategies, CBT techniques, that can shift your brain's attention from tinnitus and help it reduce the perception over time. So I would do all those things while you wait for the doctor appointment. My man David Z asks, can stress cause tinnitus? Because David says, my tinnitus came out of nowhere, but I do struggle with anxiety. David, yes, stress can cause tinnitus. And it's quite common that someone has a slowly progressive high-pitched hearing loss. They don't even notice much trouble hearing. But then in a matter of days or weeks, they notice this persistent, bothersome tinnitus. And it is very hard to ignore. It becomes this dominant sound. It's hard to focus, concentrate at work. It's hard to fall asleep at night. What can happen there is that There's a cause of tinnitus called the central subtype, or it's a central related to the central nervous system. It's a root cause of tinnitus, and it often is referred to as stress-induced tinnitus. So don't overlook stress. Think of your body and brain and your ears like a tea kettle, and stress is the heat on the stove. More heat, more stress. When there's more stress, it puts pressure on the tea kettle, and eventually this high-pitched whistling sound can come out of the tea kettle. And that's like your tinnitus. But in this tea kettle, we can't open the spout to take the pressure off, and we can't move the tea kettle because I can't get in there and with my hand to turn the knob for your tinnitus, or cut your hearing nerve. That doesn't stop tinnitus either. So what we need to do here is we need to turn down the heat and be patient and set up the environment so that your brain can reduce the whistling, reduce the perception of tinnitus over time. Because when the stress settles and when things calm down, your tinnitus will calm down and will be treated with it, even if you struggle with anxiety before this. All right. Thank you so much for your question. It's a really common situation. I want to hear from others in the chat if other people have gone through a similar thing like David. It really happens quite frequently. And I have hope because there's a lot of patients that have worked with us at Treble Health, for example, who get significantly better, and they have a very similar history as yours. All right. Jack the Flash on YouTube asks, what's your opinion on B12 supplements as a treatment for tinnitus? Jack says that he's been having good results with it. Jack, there isn't any evidence to support B12 supplements for tinnitus. I'm not that well versed in supplements in general. I believe B12 is something that isn't directly linked to anything to the ear or the tinnitus physiology. So if you're getting good results with it, keep it up. Maybe stop using it and see if the results stay. I would advise speaking to a doctor or a nutritionist if you're considering supplements and if you have a vitamin deficiency. That could influence your overall health and energy and well-being, and there's a possible link that simply doing that can help with your perception of tinnitus. So that's my take on that, Jack, but good stuff. All right, see some awesome comments here. Amir, appreciate the love. Amir says, a year ago I woke up with tinnitus, and of course I was terrified, but thanks to Treble Health, I have managed to control it. Now I have days with no tinnitus at all, and I'm back to my love, DJing. No one is better than Treble Health. Amir, you're too kind. Can I send you a virtual flower bouquet or chocolates? My goodness, making me blush up here. For those who have any interest in speaking with a specialist on our team at Treble Health, many of you don't know, but we actually have a telehealth service that you can take advantage of, including our newest program, which is called the Tinnitus 180 program. It's something that I worked alongside our doctors to create over the last few months. We really put a lot of focus into it, of creating a comprehensive program that gets our patients results. And we have an 85% success rate with this approach. We also guarantee results or your money back. So there is an important piece of this, which says that if your tinnitus does not significantly reduce in 180 days, there is a money back guarantee. If you'd like to schedule a free consultation with a specialist from our team, head over to treblehealth.com and we'll take care of you. Again, my name is Dr. Ben Thompson with Treble Health. Let's jump into more Q&A, shall we? All right. Who's up next? All right. Up next, we have David. David is from Pennsylvania. David had a loud bike tire explode near his head, and his tinnitus is around 9,000 hertz. The doctor put him on steroids. David, I'm sorry to hear that. That is a fairly common story of a sudden loud noise creating either sudden hearing loss or sudden tinnitus. Um, Steroid injection or steroid medication in an attempt to recover the hearing and tinnitus is a valid approach. Absolutely. It's generally what the medical profession, that's what we do in cases like those. So hang in there, hang in there. If there's a hearing loss after this, depending on how long this occurs for, we would want to treat your hearing loss and tinnitus together, as that would lead to the best tinnitus outcomes. I see that you have tinnitus around 9,000 hertz, and I just really encourage you to follow, getting help or do some things on your own, because no one here should think that they're stuck with their tinnitus, this, doctor told me there's nothing I could do, therefore I'm stuck with it. I just have to suffer here, until maybe it goes away on its own. I don't want anyone here to think like that, because at Treble Health, we give you tools, we give you resources to take some action, put the control back on your side of the field. All right, hey Chris from Greece. Hey Cheryl. TT asks, can stress and anxiety cause an increase in tinnitus? TT, it definitely can. It definitely can. So here's a common situation. Let's say you have a 3 out of 10 tinnitus, and all of a sudden you're noticing, my gosh, this is much more intense than it used to be. I feel like it's a 5 out of 10 now, but I don't really know why. I mean, I didn't do that much different in my life. Nothing seemed to happen, but we might overlook things like stress or anxiety. So the stress related to finances, stress related to your work or interpersonal relationships, maybe a health condition you're going through, maybe someone in your family is going through something challenging. Maybe you're watching the news and there's some world events that are really triggering. All of those types of things can put a lot of pressure on the psychological limbic system. It's part of the brain that's linked to the auditory system. And if your body's feeling in that fight or flight, if it's feeling stressed, if it's feeling anxious about things unrelated to tinnitus, it can create a negative effect on that filtering system. So the tinnitus doesn't need to change, but if the filter becomes weaker, then the 3 out of 10 tinnitus can be perceived at a 5 out of 10. That's an example how stress and anxiety can increase tinnitus. All right, we're going to keep on going here. Brian, I see your comment. Hang in there, Brian. All right. All right, we have Joe Ross. Joe, nice to see you. Joe says, developed tinnitus 6 months ago. Started using sound therapy at night while sleeping, and now I have days where I have no tinnitus at all. Joe, that's what I'm talking about. I love to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, and great job. Keep it up. Joe asks, should I still use sound therapy to habituate on days with no tinnitus? No, my approach would be, if you don't have any tinnitus on those days, don't use sound therapy. If there's some days where it creeps back, use sound therapy on those days. But the goal with sound therapy is to get to the point where you don't need to use it anymore. All right. Robert from Manila, Philippines. Great to see you. And good morning to you. Robert asks, I noticed that tinnitus gets louder when I move my neck and when my neck muscles are stretched. So Robert, I would likely suggest researching somatosensory or somatic tinnitus, and specifically neck and shoulder exercises to settle the muscles and settle the nerves in that part of your body. All right. That's probably going to loosen up the area and calm it down. And I think that will help the tinnitus when you're moving that part of your body. You can also go to different types of doctors who specialize in that condition. Okay, Renee from New York, how you doing? Renee asks, I have stress-induced tinnitus that spikes when I'm anxious. How can I control the spikes? Renee, I would say when you're noticing potential anxiety, take a break from work, try to step out, do some guided breathing exercises. I have a meditation series that's on YouTube. You can search tinnitus meditation. You can try that out for free. I would start there. I would really just focus on the holistic mind-body practices to get the anxiety in check, to balance the central nervous system. And I expect your tinnitus to really follow the control of your anxiety. All right, let's keep going, shall we? I want to see from you guys, what is one thing you want to ask other people with tinnitus, not just me, because on YouTube, if you're live on YouTube, if you're watching this after on the recording, we have a very engaged community here. So people are here to help each other, right? That's why I'm here. That's why a lot of you guys are here too. Is there's some things that you can help others with. So I'd love to encourage you to ask any questions you have to the group, and we can go ahead and respond to those questions. All right, so Chris explains that he listened to some sounds that are similar to his tinnitus with headphones for almost 2 hours at a low volume. After that, the next day for a month, his tinnitus increased. Could there be additional damage? No, Chris, I don't expect there to be damage from a soft sound. I think if anything, your that filtering mechanism there in the brain it's put a lot more attention on tinnitus. So we want to train the brain that tinnitus is a benign body sensation. We don't want the brain to think of tinnitus as a threat or something important or something dangerous. So if your brain is accidentally doing that, we need to turn that around. All right, absolutely turn that around. It's actually why we called the program that we started the Tinnitus 180 program, because it is possible to turn one's life around by getting their tinnitus in check, and to reduce tinnitus by following a comprehensive program and protocol. For those that are interested in working with us at Treble Health, you can schedule a consultation with us. You can check the bottom of the screen right now. We do have a link that goes to treblehealth.com. And if you'd like to speak with a specialist on our team, that's what we're here to do. That's what I set up Treble Health to be as a resource for you. No cost, just a conversation with one of our team members to try to answer your questions, see what kind of solutions are out there for you. All right, I have time for a few more questions here. If I don't get to your question, I will record it and see what I can do in terms of sharing that at a future live stream. If you're watching this right now, it's probably too late to ask your question. I'm going to look through these for a few really good ones. Roberta on Facebook, great to see you. Roberta asks, I love sound therapies, however, sometimes I experience discomfort when listening to sound therapy. What do you think is the cause of the discomfort? Roberta, I think that discomfort is coming from certain sounds are not pleasant to different people. Some people really don't like white noise, for example, whereas others use it because it provides them the most relief from their ringing in the ears. So it's okay if some sounds cause discomfort, but if all sounds, then just don't use them. But if all sounds cause discomfort, that might be something different, and that's definitely something that I'd like for you to speak to a professional about a little more in depth. Thank you. All right, Irene on YouTube asks, is it okay to take medications to help sleeping, which is difficult with very loud tinnitus? Had tinnitus for over a year. Irene, if your sleep is really struggling and you're trying some natural things and it's just really not working, that is a good conversation to have with your doctor. And here's why. If your sleep's not in order, it's hard for your body to heal. It's hard for your brain to heal. So getting the appropriate medical workup, reviewing medications with your doctor can definitely be an important step. All right, I would definitely consider that. Um, nothing wrong there, in my opinion. I would advise trying to have some sort of a plan to wean off medications if you're relying on them to sleep, but of course, that's a personal choice. All right. Just want to shout out Amir Groove, who not only has the best name I've seen today, but also is just showering us and my team with love. Amir says, "Guys, follow Treble Health, and trust me, you will get better." Amir, I hope I get to give you a hug one day because I think that would be some good times. Let me know where you live, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Um, Amir says, tinnitus is a horrible condition. Sadly, many ENTs won't tell you that tinnitus is something you certainly can control. Don't listen to them. Amir, I hear you. I hear you. Okay. Bob, nice to see you, Bob. Bob asks, do you recommend taking multiple audiology tests? Most of us have had a hearing test with an audiologist like myself. You listen to the beeps, you're in the quiet room. Generally, the recommendation is to take one hearing test per year to monitor for any changes. If you have things like a sudden hearing loss or a medical treatment related to the physical structures of your ear, you might do multiple hearing tests. But generally, once a year is good and it's enough. So, Bob, hopefully that answers your question. And let me know if there's anything I missed on that. All right. Movie preview guy from YouTube, how you doing? Asks, how many of your practitioners work primarily with hyperacusis? About 20% of our doctors at Treble Health in our telehealth program work specifically with hyperacusis or sound sensitivity. This is when everyday sounds like dishes clanking, water running, etc., cause significant hypersensitivity, similar to how when you have a bad migraine and the lights are too bright. With hyperacusis, sound is too loud. So yeah, movie. If you have any specific questions for one of our hyperacusis specialists, definitely reach out. I'll put a QR code on the screen right now. If you are watching from a computer or a TV, I believe you can scan that with your phone, and then you'll be able to schedule a consultation with one of our specialists. And then if you have tinnitus or sound sensitivity, we'll be able to connect you with the right team member. You can also just head over to our website and we'll be able to take care of that for you. Treble Health is the name of where to go. All right. So unfortunately, this CJ from YouTube, unfortunately, this is true that some doctors, no fault of their own. I don't believe they have ill intent here, but they say, don't worry, tinnitus is nothing to worry about. It'll get better, and just learn to manage it. If they were hearing what you were hearing and what you were going through, I hope they would have a different message for you, and certainly I do. All right, so Bob asks, when I open my jaw very wide, it changes the pitch of my tinnitus. Also, when I move my neck. Bob, opening the jaw, I'm not worried about that. I think most people experience that. I experienced that with my tinnitus. That's kind of like stretching the muscles that connect with your eardrum. So that does change just the auditory perception. I'm not worried about that. Also, clenching the jaw really tightly, that's going to change some of that as well. Moving the neck, that one has me a little concerned. So for that, what you should do is you should actually ask yourself, okay, does my tinnitus significantly change in volume when I move my neck? And what part of my neck? In what direction? Can I consistently, elicit this response? And if so, I would, if you're in the United States, I would visit an osteopath, all right? Doctor of osteopathy. It's a type of medical doctor that is a bit more holistic and into the deep tissue there. And they can assess for any disorder in your upper neck or your cervical spine. I would follow their treatment path, and that could lead to a potential root cause ID of the somatosensory tinnitus. All right, I'm going to take 3 more questions, lightning round. Possibly one of my favorite YouTube names right now, Deer in Headlights. Do tinnitus spikes go down, and is it okay to go to loud events with foam earplugs? Tinnitus spikes always come down. Always. Always. The tinnitus might not permanently go away, but the spike will come down, right? And it is okay to go to loud events with foam earplugs. Just make sure you roll them up and put them deep in your ear canal, let them expand. That's going to protect your hearing about 25 decibels in the high pitches, and that's quite a lot. If you wanted extra protection, you could use earmuffs over the top of those, but really you should be fine. And of course, be cautious, but don't, you have to keep living your life. All right. So don't let tinnitus stop you from doing the things that you love, the things that you want to do. Know that you're safe to be there. Try not to be very close to the speaker. All right. Cody asks, do you know about audio cardio? Claims to improve hearing by stimulating the cells inside of the ear. Cody, I am familiar with it, and I was aware of it a few years ago, and my initial mindset was that just makes no sense. That just makes no sense. It's very counterintuitive to the best science regarding tinnitus. Playing very low level sound therapy, so low that you can almost barely hear it, is not what we recommend at all. That actually has a negative effect. So in terms of tinnitus, I have always had my doubts that that type of approach would work. I'm actually surprised that that company has lasted so long in the marketplace, to be honest. It is on my list to actually do a little deeper dive into the research in recent years to see if there's anything new. I might be wrong, but I wouldn't recommend that to anyone I know with tinnitus. All right, let's do the last question here. Right before that, just a quick shout out to my friend Jackie, who I've never spoken with, but Jackie's my friend. Why? Because she works with Treble Health. She has worked with my team. I love it. Jackie says, I work with Treble Health, and I've been able to use the CBT, which stands for Cognitive Behavioral Techniques or Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, and it's been very helpful, but I am having a hard time habituating. So what Jackie's experiencing there is absolutely, the reality of what many of us face is, hey, I'm putting in the work, I'm getting some help, I'm noticing things are better, but I'm still having a hard time with tinnitus. I'm not fully there yet. So Jackie, my advice would be hang in there and keep putting everything in practice. We saw from Amir earlier that, consistency and following the protocol, just keeping your head down, just focusing on what you can control today is a great strategy. For those who want to reach out to Treble Health, I will put a QR code on the screen again. We do have an opportunity to book a free consultation. So if you're on your computer or your TV, you can scan that with your phone. I'll leave that up on the screen here for just a hot second. If you have further questions, you know how to find us, treblehealth.com. We're here to help you guys schedule a consultation, reach out. I love doing these live streams. I'm going to do these every month, so I will email you to keep you in the loop. All right, last question. And I'm really sorry for those who asked questions I didn't have time to get to. The last question here is from Chris. Chris asks, can an MRI cause any additional damage to my tinnitus, either because of the sound or because of radioactivity? I want to do it, but I'm scared. Chris, my advice, generally speaking, is do it. The MRI is typically recommended to either clear you that, hey, there's nothing wrong with that part of the body or ear that needs, or it actually finds something that is important for you from a medical health perspective to treat and take care of. So there's anxiety here on both sides. There's anxiety of, oh, I didn't get the MRI and I don't actually know what's happening in my body. Or there's anxiety of, if I get the MRI, is it going to make my tinnitus worse? It's very rare to make tinnitus worse when you're going in with the understanding that you're going to use earplugs. You're going to use the maximum earplugs you can. You might experience a spike in tinnitus for hours or maybe a day or two, but short-term sacrifice for the well-being and the knowledge of what's really going on in your case. So hang in there. I know MRIs can be very loud, but I really think you'll be fine from my experience. I'm confident. So let us know how that goes. Guys, love you all. Thank you so much for this fun live stream. If you have any questions, find us, reach out to Treble Health. This is Dr. Ben Thompson signing off. I hope the rest of your day can just be a little more peaceful and